Our major out the gate with the jokes. Good morning, tinfoil hats. You know why Bolivia doesn't have conspiracy theorists? Too many tin mines. Whew. Whew. Okay. So, total derailment from where I intended to go at first. I want to... If you've never been in an active war zone, I'll tell you something. Minefields are no joke, right? We have Murphy's laws of combat, things like incoming fire has the right of way. Well, another Murphy's law of combat is the easy way is mined, and that you can take that shit to the bank. So, this morning we're going to be talking a little bit about the Clinton body count because y'all know I love a conspiracy theory. And I'm going to talk a little bit about conspiracy theories generally and the rise in their acceptance and proliferation as a result of, well, let's be real, Clinton-related material and activity. So, but first, I see, let me say hello to some people. Scrimshaw Rose had first blood. Good morning, sunshine. I see Pitt Danny's with us and the Fit Life with Danielle on a Monday, which means she just put out another vlog. And Danny, you were super happy recently, a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, that you had gotten, what is it, the DJI Osmo, I think you got the 6. Either the 5 or the 6. I just picked up an Osmo 6 because one of the companies that I do contract work for is about to offer a new product that they're actually going to have a shooting on cell phones instead of our regular professional cameras. And it has been an absolute joy to play with that particular little toy, which I will go ahead and announce the BFM in the greatest capacity it can manage to field on a Saturday in about 2 weeks. I'll have to double check the dates on that and I'll let you guys know. We're going to an event and I'll publish the details to you guys later, but it's basically, it is a Viking event. It's being hosted by blacksmiths and meaderies. So I expect axes and mead and beards and who knows, maybe I'll wear a kilt or maybe I'll go even further overboard. But we're going to go have us a big old time. And I've got at least 2 working cell phone gimbals and I might throw a DSLR on another gimbal and have the boys run cameras all day and we'll just soak up content. It'll be a big old time. So, that said, let me go ahead and move into, I'll throw some more hellos out there. I already saw His Majesty with his, open it up with the jokes. GCM, good to see you this morning, brother. There's Mom. Good morning, Mom. I love you. Uncle Steve is with us. The Streambots element has joined us as well. Up and out. Good morning. And I think that's Striker. Good morning, Sean. Striker, I was going to open the phone lines this morning, but then the studio call-in line decided that it was time for the new update. So looks like we're going to have to do that tomorrow. So Clinton body count. Here's what we got. I'm going to read this story from the New York Post to you. We're going to talk about this a little bit. Death of shot Clinton aide with Epstein ties found tied to tree and ruled a suicide despite no gun at scene. So, yeah, you heard that right. They found a guy. They ID'd the body, right? The guy's name is Mark Middleton, right? And that's a name that many of us have heard before. But he was a Clinton aide, and there are some Epstein ties. Found dead, tied to a tree with gunshot wounds. No gun at the scene. Ruled a suicide. Like, tied to the tree with a gun at the scene. The suicide claim would be pretty choppy. Now, benefit of the doubt, just for the sake of argument, he could have had someone else tie him to the tree. I mean, we need a little more information on exactly how he was tied to the tree. It is possible to tie yourself to a tree to some extent, but it just seems odd. Like, was he bound hand and foot, or did he just have, like, did he sling a rope around the tree and tie himself to it? You know, tied to a tree already sounds suspicious as part of the data associated with a suicide. And then you have the shot to death. Like, okay, my dude went out in the woods with something to tie himself up, right? A power cord, an extension cord, a rope, a string. As I understand it, it was some kind of an extension cord that he was tied up with. So, but he went out there with a length of cabling and chose a firearm for his exit strategy, shall we say. All of that sounds super suspicious. But let's just devil's advocate. We're being asked to believe that he tied himself to the tree and then shot himself, and then the gun disappeared. And frankly, the most believable part of that whole scenario is that the gun disappeared after he shot himself, right? I can totally see a world where somebody commits suicide in the woods, right? He decides to feed himself a lead sandwich, successfully executes his exit plan, drops the weapon on the ground. Someone nearby hears the shot, comes to investigate, finds a dead body and a gun by the body, and decides, you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys, but hey, free gun. Steals the gun and does not call it in, does not report it, or even steals the gun and then calls in an anonymous tip, right? It's harder to do now that we all have cell phones and you can't find a payphone anywhere, but that's, okay, plausible. Likely? I don't think likely is the direction we're going to go with this. Now, here's where the tide of conspiracy theory comes into play. Cameron's talked about this on the show several times. I think I was a little further down the rabbit hole than Cameron was when Epstein died, because I worked in the intelligence world, so I had already developed an extremely unhealthy opinion of what can and cannot be trusted as far as official narratives go. But when Jeffrey Epstein exited stage left, Brian Dawson asks, it was a shotgun. How do you shoot yourself with a long gun? Yes, it's possible, but consider the yes. Yeah, that is another part of this equation, is apparently he was shot with a shotgun. And I've talked to some scene recovery guys that have cleaned up after shotgun suicides, and usually there's a toe involved there. Not to get too graphic, but spooky. Exactly, Brian. He was shot in the chest with a shotgun, right? That, even with the toe involvement, that's not how that usually goes. Stryker is reminding me that Epstein did not kill himself, and that was the thing. Leading up to, right, in the weeks before Epstein died, that was meme culture. The jokes that Epstein's gonna die in jail and it will be ruled a suicide, and it will clearly not have been a suicide. We all knew that, but we knew it kind of tongue-in-cheek, we kind of laughed about it. Ha ha ha. Well, the Clintons have a body count, and Epstein's associated with Clintons, and now he's a danger. He's a threat to the Clintons, and he's not safe anywhere. And then all of a sudden, there he goes. Now, it didn't help the conspiracy theorists at all that before Epstein apparently Arkansated himself, there was another attempt on his life by, you guessed it, another Clinton associate. Another Clinton associate who, let's be frank, the guy looked like a mob knee breaker. In fact, he was. So the suspicion there, when we talk about the Clinton body count, and people say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, there's no real evidence. Okay, I got a couple of things that I want to submit for your consideration. There is a point at which there is enough smoke to look for fire. Now, when you're talking about the Clintons and their body count, the list is extensive. The Clinton body count, as of 1 year ago, listed at least 50 names with and under strange circumstances. Right? James McDougal, Clinton's convicted Whitewater partner, died of an apparent heart attack while in solitary confinement. He was a key witness in Ken Starr's investigation. Mary Mahoney, a former White House intern, was murdered in July of 97 at a Starbucks coffee shop in Georgetown. The murder happened just before she was to go public with her story of sexual harassment in the White House. Vince Foster, and this was the one where people started talking about the Clinton body count list. A colleague of Hillary Clinton at Little Rock's Rose Law Firm died of a gunshot wound to the head, ruled a suicide. Ron Brown, Secretary of Commerce, former DNC chairman, reported to have died by impact in a plane crash. A pathologist close to the investigation reported that there was a hole in the top of Brown's skull resembling a gunshot wound. At the time of his death, Brown was being investigated and spoke publicly of his willingness to cut a deal with prosecutors. Right, and many of these stories. Oh, Alex McDonald says they ended up finding a shotgun 30 feet from the body. Okay, that even finding the shotgun though, Alex, I mean, we're talking about shooting yourself with a shotgun. That's difficult to do when your hands are free, just to be clear. But with the and I had not gotten that update, and thank you for that, Alex. But when you look at the body count list, at the very baseline, the Clintons are associated with dozens and dozens of people who have been murdered. Right? And not all of these were ruled suicide, but let's even assume that they were. Dozens and dozens. Right? How many people do you know? Like, I'm in my 40s and a veteran. I know a lot of soldiers. I don't know dozens and dozens of people who have committed suicide. And I certainly don't know dozens and dozens of people who have been murdered. And it's not just that the Clintons know dozens and dozens of people who have been murdered, but in each of those cases, there is a specific connection to legal activity that is potentially harmful to the Clintons. Right? Even without that piece of the equation, the mere fact that you are associated with dozens and dozens of people who have been murdered is highly suspicious. It's bizarre. To be associated with that many murder cases. I mean, little perspective. We can list the people that we're pretty sure Vladimir Putin has had assassinated for political reasons. And in many of those cases, there is no room for doubt. It's less than 20 people. We're talking about Vladimir Putin. Less than 20 people. But the Clintons, dozens and dozens, almost 100 people on that list, on the long list. I did post a link, but Chris. I haven't. Okay, Alex, I'm trying to see where to approve that link. Did you post it to YouTube or? Alex, since you posted the link, I will try to find it real quick and approve it so that everybody can see it. Bear with me just a second. I'm sorry. Now I've got a lull in the chat in the show. I'm sorry. Okay. So back to the thing. Show. I'm sorry. The whole thing with the Clinton body count. Yeah. I'm sorry, Alex. I actually don't know where to do that. Wait. Yeah, I do. Should be right there. No, I didn't get a notification to approve the link, so I'll have to find it later and try and add it to the pinned comments or something. Anyway, since the death of Epstein and the whole COVID-19 debacle, where throughout the entire process of the development of the COVID-19 story, we've learned that basically, if it was said by a government official within the first 1 to 1.5 years after the beginning of COVID-19, right? Basically, if you heard it between February 2020 and June of 2021, and it was from an official source, we now know it to have not only been incorrect, but to have been a knowing and willful fabrication, an actual lie. We don't suspect that. We don't have that on deep analytics from complex nets of evidence that was scraped up carefully by weaponized autism on Reddit or 4chan. No. We know that from the reporting from official government sources who have had to come out and publicly declaim their original assertions on the case. Same thing with all of the Russia hoax and the Ukraine hoax and all of that. You know, the lab leak theory, all of that. So many of these things have come to be true, right? If your 2023 conspiracy theory end of the world bingo card hadn't already started filling up, it's because you're not paying attention, right? I don't blame anybody for seeing the train derailment occur in East Palestine and immediately thinking, oh, well, this was obviously a terrorist attack committed by our government against Trump voters, right? I'm not, that's not the claim that I'm making. I'm saying that given the trajectory of conspiracies that have turned out to be true, I can't blame anybody for for coming to that conclusion in the train derailment. Take, for example, officials say East Palestine testing results show municipal water is safe to drink following toxic train derailment, right? Governor DeWine, EPA chief, tried to convince East Palestine residents their water is safe. But then Giant Eagle, a major grocery store chain that serves Northeast Ohio, announced changes to where it sources its water. Giant Eagle said they are discounting the sale of bottled water coming from a facility near East Palestine, where a train recently derailed, sending toxic chemicals into the air and soil, upending a community. The company said in a statement that a Salineville factory, located about 25 miles southeast from where the incident occurred, supplies water sold in gallon size and larger containers to its East Eagle, Get Go, and Market District stores. While the water used is reportedly from a nearby spring that's at a higher elevation than East Palestine, the company said they didn't want to take chances. What the company is really saying there is that even though government officials who have an active monetary and political incentive to convince you that they didn't screw up, and that even if they did screw up, it's not as bad as you think it is, and even if it is as bad as you think it is, it's really not that bad, right? The politician has an active incentive to convince you that the problem is not a problem. But the grocery store, the large business, they send somebody out to assess the situation and ask the question, will it cost more money to recall the product that could potentially cause harm, or will it cost more money to settle the lawsuits that will result from the product having caused harm? If the company has come to the conclusion that the settlements that they will have to pay out if people consume the product and suffer harms outweigh the cost of the recall, and that's why the recall is being done. Which means that the people with the financial incentive have said it is more likely than not that harm is going to be suffered by those who use this product, and so we will eat the cost of the recall rather than risk the cost of the settlements. So all that long litany of stuff that has just come true for years now, of course you get a Clinton aide dies, and the circumstances are bizarre and suspicious. If you are not at least suspicious that it's directly connected to the activities of the Clinton crime family, then I've got a bridge in Nevada that I'd like to sell you. It's cheap, just so you know. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put a button on it right there. I need to get moving. But before I close the show, so there have been some developments, some interesting and entertaining developments related to ChatGPT and OpenAI and the release of the Microsoft and Bing chats. And Alex, I know you and Danny did a show about this the other night. I'm going to be doing a two-parter, sort of. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about, unless something really interesting happens today, I'm going to be talking about the woke v-based AI models. A little bit about what that means as a metric for modernity. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to take that a step further, step away from the conversation about the actual AIs and look at more of a broad overview of how that development is reflective of human social and political activity. And Wednesday's going to be a pretty heady show. We're going to be talking about things like Kierkegaardian leveling theory. We're going to be talking a little bit about Nietzschean moral design theory, and I'll probably bring in a few other pieces of philosophy associated with it, and all that's going to be referenced to some extent through the lens of Strauss-Howe generational theory related to the predictive assumption that, basically the end of the 80-year Strauss-Howe historical seculum is due in around 2028, which means that the next 4 to 5 years are going to be rough. Real rough. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, and part of that conversation is going to have to include some of my thoughts on the threat of deep fake material to legal, criminal, and civil proceedings. So I've got a lot of work to prep those shows between today and tomorrow, and I hope you enjoy that when we get to it. Cameron will not be back with us until Thursday. He's got himself a little hemmed up at work, so the boy is busy. But we look to see him back here on Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow.